Hey everyone, David C. Anderson and my good buddy,
Seth V.
coming at you from the KnifeCenter. And on today's episode of Between Two Knives, we've both been carrying our sub $50 blades for the last 30 days. And now we're here to tell you how it went. Let's get into it. All right, so I think the inspiration for this video, in addition to being sparked by a reader question on our Knife AQ series, was really inspired by a lot of people when we show expensive knives on our new Knives of the Week videos say, where's all the good budget stuff? There's a lot of good budget stuff out here these days, fortunately.
Yeah, we've built quite a spread.
We've got a table full of them. So we decided, you know what? Seth and I, we both tend to carry some slightly more expensive knives. Let's bring it back to basics and set ourselves that $50 budget and carry something for 30 days. So we've done that. And to help us get through this, Thomas is going to ask us some questions from off camera there, and we'll tell you how it went.
Yeah, just to see how good budget knives really are these days.
So what made you choose the knife you chose?
Would you like to go first?
Sure. So the knife I chose is right here in front of me on the table. This is the KA-BAR. This is the KA-BAR Dozier Folding Hunter, designed by Bob Dozier.
The D2 version, which is a new release.
Yes.
I want to point that out there that most of the things on the table here are fairly new releases. There's some slightly older stuff, but
yeah, KA-BAR. This design has been in KA-BAR's lineup for years now, but they went back and kind of changed up the colorway a little bit, added D2 steel, which, if you didn't know, Bob Dozier is particularly well known for using D2 steel and his own kind of special heat treatment of it. So D2 seemed like a natural fit, and it really, I think, brought new life to this great design again. And I was eager to test it out, see how well this design does with a little bit of upgraded specs against so many other great options on the market. But other than just my own curiosity, I mean, I really did sincerely pick this as the budget knife to carry if you only had one to pick. And that's all on the back of this strong design. I think this is just an excellent design for everything. For your true one EDC knife.
it's a fairly straightforward design, but there's versatility in there kind of as a result, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. Very nice, simple handle shape, comfortable, kind of rounded off in all the places you want your fingers to be able to move around. Doesn't lock you into one specific grip. It's a great size. I think a just over 3-inch blade, maybe just under, and a nice, generous 4-inch handle or so. I think
Can still get a full grip on it.
Works for larger than average hands, works for smaller than average hands. And yeah, it's just a well-made, well-engineered, well-designed knife. And there's a lot about this design as we go through this that I thought was kind of beautiful in its simplicity, actually. So yeah,
Nice.
Just a great design and done in nice quality materials.
Very good. As for my pick, I went with the CIVIVI Badlands Vagabond, and for this challenge, I think size was really important for me because this is going to be the thing you use everywhere. It could be an office scenario, it could be a work-a-day scenario, what have you. So I didn't want something that was either too big or too small. I wanted it to kind of bridge the gap. So kind of a similar size. I'm about, a little bit over 3 inches. I think it's about 3 1/4 on this particular guy. Similar comments can be made about the handle shape here as you made on your Dozier. But one of the things I like about the two picks we picked, yours is a little more of a classic design that's still, putting in the long hours and doing work. Whereas CIVIVI is part of this new crop of just kind of insanely spec'd knives for the price. I mean, we've got ball bearings in the pivot, excellent flipping action, really fine edge, very thin edge. I just love the fit and finish you can get on this knife for $40 for this guy. And in a way, I wanted to see if truly it offered all of the things that a more premium knife offered in the budget space, which, spoiler alert, I think it did. But that's kind of what led me to that. I really love the drop point blade shape. A lot of folks were asking about the Ortis. I'll bring that up here just for a second. Same blade, or same handle shape. The clip point shape, it's good. Don't get me wrong. Actually, it's very cool looking. I just prefer the simplicity of a drop point myself, and in a way the Badlands Vagabond feels a little more elegant in its overall profile as a result. So that's why I went with this one over the Ortis, but yeah.
Yeah, I can see personal taste bringing somebody to this one. I don't think it's a downgrade necessarily.
No. I don't want to give that impression. It's just my personal preference. I like a drop point.
Yeah.
So.
What about some of the other knives that people suggested?
Like the Ortis?
Yeah, like that one.
Well, I did talk about that. I'll jump in first on this one because two other CIVIVIs were very frequently mentioned, and of me specifically, like, why didn't you pick these CIVIVIs?
Yeah.
One is the Elementum. Fine knife, I have one. This actually is my one. I dyed the scales green, so that's why it looks a little bit different from the ones you may see. And I think this is a perfect example of how the differences of a knife on paper versus in hand change the game.
Yeah.
On paper, the Elementum should win between these two knives. You know, D2 steel, D2 is pretty much, in the budget space, the king of edge retention, and you went with the D2 blade there.
Yeah.
Sub 3-inch blade, it's just under 3 inches, which actually is important for me, but for certain areas I have to go. I just kind of ignored that. For this challenge, I pretended that didn't exist. Another nice drop point shape, very neutral handle, even technically a little bit more neutral than the Vagabond. All the other same great stuff. G10 on the handles as opposed to FRN or GRN, whatever they're using.
Considered kind of a premium feature.
Yeah. Versus the 9C and the 9CR stainless on my particular blade, which is about 440C levels metallurgically speaking. So on paper, the Elementum should win, but when I hold these two next to each other, the Elementum just feels much less refined in terms of the shape, not in terms of the action. It's excellent, but the shape here to me is much more graceful. The handles are more comfortable. You got a little bit of contour to them, and I don't mind 9CR. I think it's a very good steel for the price range. So that didn't sway me away at all.
Yeah, the Elementum came up a lot, and it's kind of funny. You and I might be the only two people who don't love the Elementum,
right?
Even in this building. I mean, not to mention our customers who buy a ton of them, but everyone else here loves the Elementum. A lot of people have bought them, but you and I.
It's not like we hate the Elementum.
No,
we don't.
It is interesting though.
But it's not a design that lights either of us on fire in a way. It doesn't inspire us the way the Badlands Vagabond does, for example. The other CIVIVI that was mentioned a lot is the Brazen, and again on paper, a better knife, right? You got G10 again, 14C28N steel.
Yeah, check out that backspacer.
Oh yeah, cool ridged backspacer there. This steel honestly is one of my favorites in the budget space, even more so than D2. I like the fine edge you can get off of this steel. I enjoy the edge retention you can get from it, but for what I was looking for, a little too big. I wanted something just a little bit smaller than this particular knife. But both of these guys come in, $50 for both of these guys. So it wasn't a price thing that made me choose the $40 knife. It truly does, to me, feel like a more pleasant knife to hold, even more than this Brazen as well. So how about you? What were some others that you were kicking around or got suggested?
Well, the Rat series has been recommended since these hit the market. For the money, the quality that you get, and the excellence of this design kind of speaks for itself. I mean, this knife is on everybody's short list for great budget knives,
and
for
should
a good
be,
reason.
and deserves to be.
Yeah, the Rat Model 1 is comfortable. They're very tough. They always work. I've seen these just absolutely beat up and still kicking. So lots of good things to say about the Rat 1.
But why didn't you choose it?
The reason I didn't choose it is it's just too big.
For your EDC.
For my
needs
EDC,
anyway.
yeah. This much knife, kind of this thick, this long.
A little bit heavy, on the heavier side too.
A little bit heavy, just every day in the pocket. Begins to feel a little more like an anchor than like something you're just happy to have in your pocket. Great to have on days when maybe you are doing some rough work.
Headed out into the woods.
You're gonna need a big grip, but for every day,
You want something a little bit lighter.
A little bit much for me, yeah. So then, of course, the natural suggestion is, well, why not the Rat 2? It's the Rat 1, but smaller. And to me, that's why I didn't choose it. It's, I think it's actually, it's very difficult to take a design that works at one scale and simply change it, simply shrink it and make it work at a smaller scale.
Not everything can be the large and small Sebenza, which tends to work.
It's very tricky to just take a design and shrink it and still have it work, and that's kind of what happened here. And for me, it just feels a little small.
Yeah, I do think it works as the smaller side. I don't have a hesitation there, but I think between, if I could have your choice for a second, between these two knives, very similar amount of blade length, but you've got significantly more handle on your KA-BAR versus the way this feels in the hand. You can still choke up and get the length, but this has a much more natural feel.
Yeah, I tend to gravitate towards designs that let you get right behind the edge, and the way this handle is designed, it really
does
lets
that
you
very nicely.
Get up right next to it. So yeah, I skipped the Rat 2. I'm a big fan of Spyderco knives. I own a lot of Spyderco knives, so I was thinking Spyderco. The Tenacious is a great choice. A little bit broad.
That was on my short list as well, but again, it was a little bit bigger. For me, honestly, my short list came down to the Tenacious, the Brazen, and the Badlands Vagabond for me.
Yeah, all excellent choices. I mean, they're super well made. I don't think any one of them is going to be a better choice for the long term. In terms of how the knife holds up, but in terms of the everyday experience, yeah, a little broad. The Astute, I was so close to picking the Astute. This is a fantastic design, graceful, beautifully balanced.
I love the lines of that knife. It's very cool.
Again, you can the handle allows you to just get right up close to the edge there. Nice kind of negative angle to the blade so that when you're on a cutting board, it feels very natural. But the D2 steel of the KA-BAR for less money
swayed you in that direction.
It swayed me, and
because this is about like 45-ish, give or take a little bit. Yeah.
And the KA-BAR is about 30. So as a recommendation for our audience, I had to go with KA-BAR. I think D2 is a meaningful upgrade, and as much as I love this design, I think D2 is just a better bargain.
So I think one of the another one that got mentioned a lot, and one that I had been thinking about, was the Feldspar series from CJRB. Kind of the same story for me on the Rats. For you was the large size felt a little bit larger than I wanted, and the small was a little bit smaller than I wanted. I went for something kind of right in between the two here as well. But these would also have been a great choice, especially these contoured versions, because you got D2 steel again. Very affordable on both of these. I think these were both less than $40. Ball bearings, no flipper, but nice thumb stud action, so they work really well. But ultimately, I went with another guy.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The on-paper specs would lead you to different choices than being here in the room and handling the knives. I think that's always true.
I think that's partly goes to explain the popularity of the Elementum, because it is a very good knife and it hits so many good things on paper.
Yeah.
But that's the disadvantage of not being able to pick up a knife before you buy it these days, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So.
That said, did you feel constrained by the budget?
Not at all, actually.
I think I could have easily spent $50. Having spent $30 on the Dozier, I think you can get more in terms of the refinement of how the knife operates. The CIVIVI is a perfect example of that.
If it weren't for brands like CIVIVI and CJRB, if they didn't exist on the market, I might have felt a little more constrained by the $50 budget. But the fact that they're offering, much more premium feeling features that you used to have to spend, at least twice this amount of money to get is pretty impressive, honestly. The fact that these things have trickled down and are so reasonably priced on knives like these is pretty great for everyone.
Yeah, let me just rattle off the specs of this just really quick. We've got a deep carry pocket clip, a anodized pivot collar, nested liner lock, ceramic ball bearings, D2 steel, stonewash finish, contoured G10 handles. That is quite a list of features for the money. For
less than $40.
Yeah. It used to be even getting most of those features would put you well over $100. So the fact you can get them now on a knife that's around 50 is frankly incredible.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah.
So out of the box, what were your impressions of your choice?
For mine, I think I kind of just touched on it. You get a much more premium feeling experience than $40. I mean, the fit and finish is there. You don't get things like super flush liners or anything. One of the tricks they do is they letterbox the scales a little bit so the fit doesn't have to be perfect, but it looks darn near perfect. The crisp feel out of the box is great. And one thing that CIVIVI is pretty much a king at this price range are the factory edges. I mean, it's very thin. I feel like there's a hint of convex on there. There definitely is now because the way I've maintained the edge. But they're really highly refined, really thin, and they slice super well. No complaints whatsoever, honestly.
Yeah.
How about yours?
Mine, this was a knife that took some breaking in. And I think if you know knives, you can tell that just by looking at it and the way it's constructed. The handle is injection molded. It is a single piece. Single piece handle. It's an integral construction. You have to go all the way around to titanium frame lock integral flippers to get a knife more simply built than this, which I think is kind of cool. But yeah, it means that there's no bearings in the pivot. There's no bushings. There's nothing. It's just the injection molded handle clamped around a blade, and that especially with the coating, it takes some breaking in. So it was a little stiff out of the box. The factory edge was quite sharp and symmetrical, but
you did reprofile that.
I did reprofile it. Yeah, it was not so thin behind the edges on the CIVIVI. So yeah, it took some breaking in, but it was solidly built, easy to use. It wasn't like there was a problem out of the box. It wasn't super refined.
Okay.
In use, did the knife perform to your expectations?
Quite.
Yeah.
Simple answer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I kind of know what to expect from a CIVIVI. I've handled so many of them, but I've not carried one super regularly. And it really did. The action held up. It feels exactly the same today as it did at the beginning. The blade itself cuts super nicely. Yeah.
Yeah, same story here, especially after I reprofiled it. The D2 steel, I said this before, I'll say it again, I do think it's a meaningful upgrade in terms of edge retention. I tend to do a lot of cardboard cutting with my knives, and D2 is just such a perfect choice for that. Nice abrasion resistance. You can put a really coarse edge on it, which I like to do, and it just rips through stuff.
So would you say you got kind of what you expected out of the steel?
Absolutely, yeah.
After the reprofile, did you have to resharpen it?
Actually, no, I haven't. I probably should strop this, but no, I haven't. It's probably 2.5, 3 weeks of use, and this could still shave, I think.
So as for my particular steel here, that 9CR, it performed about as I expected, edge retention wise. Held a respectable edge. Didn't, it's not going to equal D2, but I was able to strop it very easily to keep it sharp. And I was kind of wondering if I was going to have to sharpen it at all over the course of 30 days. Eventually I did, very lightly. I like to lay sandpaper on top of my strop and just sharpen that way. And the stropping wasn't quite keeping the edge the way I wanted, so I just came in a little bit, real light sharpening, and then it's been stropping ever since. And you can barely tell any metal has changed there. You can see the reflectivity just a little bit. But it worked really well. And if this is your only knife, as the conceit of the challenge was, if you only have to sharpen once a month,
yeah,
that's a respectable steel. You don't need a super steel to have respectable edge retention anymore. Granted, I wasn't like cutting all day every day with it, but for most general EDC uses, shouldn't look down at the budget stuff out there. It is going to work really well.
No.
Is there anything your knife was particularly good at, and did it surprise you in any way?
I'll take this one first. Yes, actually. So I mentioned the very simple construction of this handle, and it actually ended up being really useful. So one of the cool things you can do when a knife is just a seamless, kind of smooth piece back here is use it to seal up packages that you've taped closed. I was doing that all the time.
Used it like a burnisher or something?
I was burnishing tape on my post office trips.
Just because you have that, because I've used like a pen, like a metal pen for that, but yeah.
Yeah, it was in my
got that
pocket.
there.
It was easy to use. Just, and then that's kind of why having a budget knife, why carrying a budget knife can be, I don't want to say more useful, but that was something I would not have done with an expensive knife. I'll say that. If I was carrying my Sabenza, probably wouldn't go rubbing it on a bunch of cardboard, screwing up the finish. But with this one, no problem. I was happy to use it.
I'd say for mine, one of the things I appreciate about this knife is the nimbleness. It's just very easy to control, and man, it was just so good at just quick little deft cuts. It could still push through bigger stuff when needed, but it was just so satisfying to pick up, make a precise cut, and put away, and be done with. It was just very, very nice.
Yeah. One thing that surprised me after I reprofiled it was how much better it cut. Because of the hollow grind, I think actually taking the edge, lowering the angle of the edge actually brought me to a little thinner plates of the hollow grind. So the knife really, really was just singing through cuts after I reprofiled it. And I think if you're new to knives and feeling a little shaky about sharpening, just jump into it, especially on a hollow grind. You are likely to improve things way before you make things worse.
Right.
Even if you don't know what you're doing. Just go slow, and I think you'll be rewarded with a sharper knife.
Was there any point where you wished you were carrying something else?
I had one.
Yeah, me too. Why don't you go first?
So for me, it was that I mentioned this in our kind of check-in video. I was going to a wedding, and I wished I had a slightly more gentlemanly knife. And I cheated on this just a little bit. I did carry my my Nordsmith skipjack with the fancy bone handles. I cut one thing with it. It was a tag on a piece of clothing.
You are forgiven.
I felt bad about it at the time, but but it's funny, when you talk about gentleman's knife, at that point, the thing that makes a gentleman's knife is the aesthetics, really.
Yeah.
You've got premium, and you've got very budget-oriented and affordable gentleman's knives. The reason I wanted to carry something else had nothing at all to do with how well the CIVIVI performs at
needing another knife.
At anything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was the only time. I was honestly very, very pleased carrying this particular knife all month.
Yeah, as for me, I missed a bit of the fidget factor. As you can see, this broke in beautifully. I mean, I can fidget with it, but it's not as kind of beautifully fidgetable as this. This is the Ferrum Forge Stinger, also made by CIVIVI, so it has that characteristic.
A little bit higher in price than this bracket, but
yeah, I think these run about $70.
But this is your knife, actually, right?
This is my knife. Yeah, I brought this from my personal collection. I just love, you can flick it open with your finger, you can thumb it open, you can flip it, you can just sit here, close your eyes, and totally fidget away. That's nice.
And you can definitely get that within the budget with almost pick any CIVIVI under the price range, pretty much. Yeah.
In conclusion, first off, are you still happy with your choice?
Yes, definitely. I appreciated this little guy so much. There was a sort of joy in carrying something so beautifully simple. I mean, this design, it's so refined. Everything that did not need to be here was left in the bin. I mean, like, the thumb stud is only on one side, for example. It's reversible, but, why have an extra thumb stud? It works. The pocket clip attaches with a single screw. Why need more? Just, beautifully simple.
And moreover, it cut everything you needed to cut.
Yes.
Yeah.
It worked great. The ergonomics are thoughtless. I love when you're using a knife and you can forget about it. It just lends itself to the task and disappears in hand. And the Dozier does that every time.
I got that from mine as well. The way you mentioned that, yeah. For me, I am as well. Did everything I wanted it to do. And honestly, there was something liberating about not having to make a choice in the morning of which knife you're going to pick up, and also not having to worry about what's going to happen to it, being as it is $40 knife here. I mean, I got on a plane for the first time in several months and put this in the checked baggage, and I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to worry if something bad was going to happen while I was on that trip, anything like that. Very happy with it, did everything I needed to do, and felt honestly very good doing it.
Would you carry the knife again now that the challenge is over?
Have done, actually.
Yeah, same. I carried it on Sunday to gather my thoughts.
There's something too about, when you spend that much time with a knife, you do start to form an actual bond with the tool.
Oh, you can see the bond I formed with it in the wear on this coating.
I definitely would. In occasions where I would use it kind of where in the scope of my collection, a $40 knife makes sense if I'm if I don't want to worry about a more expensive knife, whether it's, I'm heading to a certain area or I'm traveling, things like that. Or if I just want to mix things up a little bit, absolutely, I would carry this guy again.
Would you pick something different if you were to do another 30 days?
That's a good question. I mean, we laid out a lot of awesome knives on the table. On the strength of the design alone, I would like to try the Astute. I think I would really like carrying this for 30 days, and I think I would be happy doing so. But that might be just my inner knife geek wanting to
try different things.
Yeah, coming out. I think as an everyday tool, the Dozier does it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I think I might try the brazen, go a little bit bigger, just on the strength of the steel in this case. The design certainly works. It doesn't quite have the same nimble feel. I take that back a little bit. It does, but it's.
You'd have to try and see.
Yeah, I'd have to experience it for 30 days to see how I kind of warm up to it over time. But it does feel good. The materials are great. It's. I certainly know a CIVIVI can stand up for 30 days and far longer.
Yeah.
But if I were to carry the Badlands Vagabond for another 30 days straight, I would not be disappointed by that.
All right, so the 30 days are up. What are you carrying now?
I am carrying a Spyderco Stretch 2 straight spine in K390.
That is such a fun steel.
Yeah.
It just
I was ready to go high end with the steel again. D2 is fine, but one of the things I really get out of this knife obsession I have is sharpening, is trying different steels, experimenting with different sharpening techniques, etc., etc. So I love to be able to play around with a new steel, and K390 is new to me, as is the Stretch 2. The design's been refined a little bit from the Stretch 1. I wanted to give it a shot. I'm really enjoying it, and there's a little bit of the no-nonsense vibe of the Dozier in this, I think.
It's kind of this Spyderco's family of backlocks like this is kind of, the backlock, idiom or genre taken to its logical conclusion in a way. They've done everything they possibly could to it without going too far.
Yeah, They didn't spend money on making it fancy.
Right.
But it does operate much more smoothly than the Dozier. Your money goes towards, extra refinement in the tolerances. The lockup is smoother and tighter, even though it's the same kind of mid-back lock system.
You've got things like adjustable screws. It's not a pinned together construction. Not that the Dozier is, but some lockbacks.
There's only 2 screws.
4-position pocket clip. So it's all utility driven. It's all purpose driven. Not to be fancy, but to be useful.
Yes, definitely.
As for me, I bounced around a little bit in the first week or so after the challenge ended. Carried a few things, my Para 3 for a little bit, but at first I went higher up in the budget as well. I was carrying my large Sebenza for a little bit, my Sebenza 21 Insingo. Really nice knife, but it wasn't doing it for me actually. What I wound up kind of gravitating to and kept picking up is I've kind of fallen back in love with my bug out again. Had it for a while, love the knife. I just added the Flightanium crossfade scales to it, and It's funny because I just gradually kind of came to it and then realized it's remarkably similar in size and shape to the CIVIVI.
Yeah.
It's got that good kind of in between, not too big, not too small size. Very great edge geometry, very good handle for the size, and yeah, love the fidget factor on the crossbar lock, on the axis lock. I've always been an axis lock fan, not necessarily for the fidget factor, just I love the way it operates. And yeah, it seems almost like,
yeah, I can see it.
like it's the natural successor to this knife. I've kind of been going through, you know, as all of us do, we kind of go through phases in kind of what we are wanting to carry. And I've been going through carrying a bunch of larger knives for a while. I used to carry, almost everything I used to carry was sub 3 inches because I used to need that length, like I mentioned earlier. But then I went bigger, and now I'm kind of coming a little bit smaller again. So it's kind of funny how the CIVIVI kind of led me there in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it.
Okay, close it out.
Okay. So I had a lot of fun. I think if you're not convinced that a sub $50 knife or even a $32 knife has what it takes these days, they're out there. There's great stuff out there. There's new stuff coming out all the time in the budget arena. Like I said, the Tenacious here, your Dozier and the Ontarios are, you know, a part of the older guard, but
Yeah.
everything else here is
Last couple years, maybe. Yeah.
3 years old. I mean, Elementum was 2019.
Yeah.
That might be the oldest knife of the other things here on the table at the moment. Lots of good stuff coming out these days.
Yeah. Never been a better time to buy a budget knife.
Never been a better time to be any tier of knife enthusiast, honestly.
Yeah.
There's so many good stuff. If you're watching our new Knives of the Week videos and you're getting scared away by some of the expensive stuff we tend to see more releases because they're smaller batch.
Yeah.
Whereas less expensive stuff tends to be bigger runs and that sort of thing. So don't let the preponderance of high-end releases convince you that there's not awesome budget stuff out there.
Absolutely.
So that's it. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, we'll leave links in the description as always to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. Make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program so that when you buy one of these knives today, you'll earn some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson
I'm Seth V.
from the Knife Center. See you next time.